Welcome to today's webinar about one of the characteristics that outstanding dissertations have: consistency and how to achieve it. Once upon a time, Oscar Wilde said that consistency is the last refuge of the unimaginative. And he might be right, at least for the literature field. However, when dealing with dissertations, consistency is a very important tool to get not only consistent but also valid results. As I pointed out in other webinars, a dissertation is a piece of academic writing that is built to convince academic people of our point of view. And to do that, it has to be clear, supported, and consistent enough to let scholars evaluate and validate our work. That's the reason to present this quote. This is the content of this webinar. As usual, we begin with a concept and move towards pragmatic content to apply our knowledge. And let's begin by explaining what we refer to when using the term consistency as an essential characteristic of a high-quality dissertation. The definition of consistency is focused on the concept of coherence among the different parts that form a dissertation. But what is coherence? In general, coherence refers to different elements forming a unified whole, a whole whose parts not only fit together structurally, but also functionally. They all move to the same goal with a smooth flow. There is no part that has to be pushed oddly to fix into its designated space. Nothing is perceived or forced to act oddly. This graph illustrates the basic process to get consistency. First, ideas are produced and related logically, so there is harmony among them. Then, those ideas are expressed in such a way that they can be fully and appropriately understood. Hi, Adrian. In other words, wording reflects exactly what the person has thought, and there is not opportunity to foster misunderstandings. When those stages are achieved, then coherence is assured and therefore consistency. The latter emerges from the logicality of the ideas produced. But what are the elements behind consistency that you need to take care of so as to get it when writing your dissertation? Let's see them. These are the two elements behind consistency: coherence of ideas and coherence of wording, which in fact reflect the process presented in the graph I explained before. As the slide points out, the graph presented introduced before, the first step to achieve consistencies is coherence of ideas. But what is it? Well, coherence of ideas is also called logical coherence, and it implies that all ideas should be related so as to contribute to achieve the purpose of the dissertation. Ideas can either support or challenge the points of view that constitute the main focus of the study, but they cannot be unrelated to it. In other words, ideas should be harmonically connected like sound waves in a song. They must be coherent throughout the whole dissertation. Their discussion has to follow the same line of thought in each chapter, and very especially with basic elements like problem, purpose, research question, theoretical framework, and methodology. When you do that, reading and interpreting your dissertation is easy because ideas and words flow smoothly. That should be a must for your writing. This is an example of how pivotal elements of a dissertation have coherence of ideas. These three elements have the same focus. There could not be misunderstanding of what the writer wants to study and achieve. You may agree or not with their point of view, but you are not going to interpret their work wrongly, and that's what you are looking for. Now, let's move to the second element of the consistencies of a dissertation, coherence of wording. It is also called textual coherence. Some texts are perceived as easy to read, while others require too much effort to interpret. Text readability is the result of the interconnection between text surface, like elements like words, grammar, style, etc., and the concepts and relations that underline it. In other words, wording should not only be right from the grammatical point of view, but also express the right concepts and their relationships. It is a balanced mixture of structure, meaning, and context. What you write must reflect exactly what you think if you want to convince people, especially academic people. Nothing can be kept in your mind, and you cannot expect readers guess what you have thought. Here you have a counterexample of what coherence of wording is. What can you infer from it? Can you be sure of what the researcher intends to do? What do you think, Adrian? When we look at this, we say, in chapter 1, this study wanted to know how effective differentiation is to teach science in high school. But in the literature review, the student wrote, this study was focused on effective strategies to teach science. They said, wait a minute, weren't we talking about differentiation? And now we open this to effective strategies. And in chapter 5, when discussing the results, the student says, since this study intended to find out a way to improve science teaching, say, hey, when do you say that you wanted to improve science teaching? Okay? So, it's time to talk about how you can assure a consistent dissertation. Okay, let's see. This slide presents the key to do it. You have to keep the same line of thought and express it in similar terms throughout the whole dissertation. It means, firstly, that you have to be sure what the focus of each part is and connect them harmonically, and secondly, express them in such a way that the meaning is the same, even if the words change. And this are two difficult challenges for students because they should have very clear ideas and also master the language so as to avoid changes in meaning when changing wording. That's why it is advisable not to change wording when talking about the pivotal elements. You may say, oh, that could be boring, and you're right. But a dissertation is not a piece of writing conceived to entertain, but convince. And the risk of mixing or altering ideas is too big if you are not a skillful writer that it seems sensible to follow the basic rule of not changing wording whenever writing pivotal elements. In summary, changes to the wording of those elements may cause changes in meaning, and that is usually one of the major problems we find when evaluating a thesis or a dissertation. So, the basic tools to assure coherence of ideas and wording are the focus of each part and the connection among all parts. The foci of all the sections of the dissertation must be clearly and accurately express your view, interest, and goal. That means that coherence of ideas must be achieved by having ideas that complement to fit into the general pattern you have created in order to explain and support your point of view. Coherence of wording, on the other hand, is achieved by means of actions like applying the rules associated to the type of text that is expected in a thesis or dissertation, welcome summaria, using the language devices that assure a cohesive text surface. For example, when you use signal words and phrases like but, and, for this reason, because, since, that kind of words. Linking concepts and relation explicitly or implicitly. Using the same wording for pivotal concepts and paraphrasing other elements. So if you do those actions, you will be paying attention to keep and to assure coherence of wording. At the end, it is a matter of writing a dissertation whose different sections can be read as a good musical work is listened to. Everything contributes to taking the reader to the same ending point without bumps. Okay? Now, I ask you, can you feel that when reading this slide? Can you feel the whole thing moving together as this to the same goal? And can you feel that you are in some kind, you are listening to a very harmonic song? So is this an example or a counterexample of coherence? What do you think? Okay. Okay, you have to reflect upon that. And here you have some tips to analyze the main elements of a dissertation and also identify inconsistencies. Wait a minute. Adrian says that differentiation is more specific than effective strategy. Absolutely. And then you say the train of thought seems to be all over the place. Yes, it is absolutely. Let's go back here. And you see this one. You say middle school students of a Chicago school district who are taught using traditional reading strategies get low scores in this test. And then the purpose to that problem is written in these terms. The purpose of this study is to know why middle school students do not like to read. So the researcher is assuming that they got low scores because they don't like to read. But this purpose is not connected to this problem directly. I mean, it is not that at the end of the research study, you may identify the problem with students don't like to read, but why is the reason to that? Welcome, Mabel, and so on. And then when you look at the research question, why do middle school teachers prefer to teach reading using traditional strategies? Now the focus is different. Yep. Because now the focus is on the teachers. Then the theoretical framework is based on a theory that is associated to traditional ways of teaching. Yeah, but the methodology is a qualitative design, and when you check this, the problem is related directly to low scores, which is not directly connected to a qualitative design, even though you can use a qualitative section to complete the quantitative one. But let's check again the hints to identify inconsistency. Okay. And these are some tips to analyze the main elements of a dissertation and identify inconsistencies. Ask these questions, and they will let you identify strengths and weaknesses of the work that you are reading. But you must be as objective as possible when answering them, because that is what will help you improve your work. So it's not a thing that you can answer without really reflecting upon that. And let me present to you a graph that illustrates the application of the identifying process to the previous example, the example that we talked about. Here you can see in a more direct way the inconsistency among the foci of the pivotal elements. Look, traditional reading strategy and long score. That's the focus of the problem. Then the focus of the purpose is reasons to dislike reading. And you cannot find a direct link between these two foci. And then the third foci is reason to use traditional strategies. And then the theory associated to traditional strategies. And then methods based on human experience and sampling by recommended peers that cannot be immediately connected to low to scores in a test. So if you write down the foci of the pivotal elements, you can very graphically see that they are inconsistent. Okay. Now let's continue and see. Keeping the same problem, we have the same problem, and establishing the main focus of the dissertation. For this problem, the main focus of the dissertation is teaching using traditional reading strategy, seems to be related to low scores in this test. But could you make the other pivotal elements work together for achieving the same goal? What is the most appropriate purpose and research questions and theoretical framework and methodology to make the whole thing work together as a unit, not only because they have the same elements, the same ideas, but also because they function in the same. Adrian asks, does harmonic connection imply that the different facets of one same argument are taken into account and discussed? Yes. I mean, you need to find common ground into which you base your presentation and discussion of the whole dissertation. All the parts of a dissertation must have some common ground. I'm not saying that you cannot include ideas and approaches and theory that challenge other ones. No. What I'm saying is that you find a common ground into which those elements can connect, and can connect because they have points in common, okay? And because that implies that I can introduce theories, points of view that support the researcher's ideas, but you can also introduce theories, approaches, and ideas that challenge the researcher's one, okay? And that you can do, and you can do that, okay? And let's see the next slide. Look, these are some possibilities, not the only ones, okay, to connect the pivotal elements harmonically. The problem is middle school students of a Chicago school district who are taught using traditional reading strategies get low scores in this test. And then the focus is teaching using traditional reading strategies seems, because it's a hypothesis, to be related to low scores in that test. So the purpose could be to know why middle school students of a Chicago school district who are taught traditionally get low scores in this test. That's one option. What is the common ground? The common ground is that you are looking for the reasons for why they are getting low scores, and you try to make a connection to the way that they are being taught. You cannot say that from the beginning, because if you say that, your study would be biased. But you have to point out that may be a connection between the methodology or the teaching method used and the results in the test. So the research question could be, why do middle school students of a Chicago school district who are taught traditional get low scores in the test? And then the theoretical framework could be, this study will be based on different theories and approaches that explain the learning of reading. Why? Because you are going to explain the traditional method of teaching, but you need other points of view in order to know if it is necessary to change the method of teaching and get another method that could improve their scores, okay? And this could be done using a mixed method research design, which may have, for instance, a comparison of different teaching methods. You can have a group that continues being taught traditionally, and that would be the control group. And then you can have another group that uses the constructive way of teaching, and another one that maybe use another one. You can have from 2 to 3 or to more different methods of teaching and compare the results and get to answer this question, why? Okay. Could you think of other options, or do you have any comment to make it in relation to this harmonical connection among the pivotal elements? Think of that. Okay. Of course, you are invited to do it, to talk about that right now or at the beginning of the webinar. So, coherence of ideas and wording assure consistency. But, there is another tool you can use to improve the process, and it is called Coherence of Habits. Let's see what it is. What else can you do to make the whole process of writing a dissertation more consistent? Well, get used to perform some basic actions whenever you write something for your dissertation. And this is what the terms coherence of habits means, is to follow a writing routine that includes some specific actions, and also pay attention to apply academic writing rules. Now let's see how to do that. You have 3 stages that you can use, or that will help you develop very effective habits when writing, and not only dissertation. Adrian says regarding the previous, the connection harmonically of the previous example, that it might be worthwhile to examine whether, and if so, how that test objectives differ from those tackled by traditional reading approaches. That is absolutely a very good option. Why? Because if you can establish if there is a link, a direct link, or a broken link between what the test evaluate and what the traditional reading approaches teaches, then you can have the reason why there is not, why that use of that traditional method is not being useful enough. Good, Adrian, good. Oh, sorry, let me go back. So here you have 3 stages that you can use: pre-writing activities, write draft, review draft. What the actions that we are going to talk about in each of these stages could be, you need to develop them as habits. So whenever you write something for your dissertation or for any other writing task, you can do that, and that will give you good results. Let's begin with pre-writing activities. Before writing, you need to do some activities focused on developing and organizing your ideas, as well as supporting and challenging your points of view. Look, establish the focus of the section. Before writing, you are very clear about what you want to talk in that specific section. Then find literature support for your argument. So you are prepared with all the literature support that you need to prove your point of view. But you also find counter arguments, because you need also to discuss points of view that are different from yours. that challenge your point of view, so you can convince people that what you are proposing is the best solution or the best approach. But you have to identify citations that can be used before writing, because if you have that, at least a basic set of citations, then when you write, you will do it in a more confident way. And then at the end, when we talk about the next stages, you can go back and improve that citation, but you need a basic set in order to begin writing. And of course, you also need to create an outline for the section or any other organizing tool that lets you organize your ideas before writing, so you can go smoothly from one point to another without saying, what should I say now? I don't know. I'm stuck here. I don't know where I'm going to. And finally, check the flows of ideas on that organizing tool. So before writing, you check if the way that you organize your ideas seems to be working together and seems to flow smoothly. The next stage is that you have to write the draft, at least the first draft. And while writing, these actions will keep you on the road of consistency. Write, read, check, rewrite are actions that will keep you on track. Aldrin said Creswell, 2015, even suggests creating a literature map with appropriate citation for each checkpoint in the map to ensure consistency. Yes, and that's a very good tool. I mean, you need to organize not only your ideas and check the flow of your ideas, but you also have to organize the citations that you are going to use to support or challenge the points. So when you are writing, you begin following your organizing tool, and they say, okay, now I have to use these citations, and you put it there. And then you continue. So you don't have to go, get up and go and look for hundreds of pages that you have and hundreds of references that you have. You already have done that thing. So if you look at the actions suggested for the right draft, is first write down a first draft that you have already organized. Then assure that that draft has logical and text coherence, okay? In other words, that the ideas are connected and then have the same focus. And then that the way that you worded those ideas are coherent because they all express the same meaning, that there are not different meaning when you change the wording, okay? Then you check readability, and you say you can do it to you first, and then you ask a peer, a friend, or somebody to read it and say, please tell me if this can be read easily. And then you check if it follows the outline. Of course, you can put this action before, okay? And before checking its reliability, and you improve the draft according to the feedback that you get. And when you finish writing, these habits perform a checking function in which you assure the quality of your product. Reviewing before submitting is a valuable habit. You have to get used to check the coherence in relation to the whole. You read the whole thing and you check if everything is working together, if everything fits without pushing it. Okay? So if everything that you have wrote there seems to be in the appropriate place to contribute to the whole function of the section that you have written, so that you don't have to push something. No, it must be here. This must be this. No, you have to check the coherence in that sense. Of course, then you have to proofread that draft. Check readability again and edit it as needed. Those are the habits that help you write consistent dissertations and any kind of academic writing, by the way. So this is the main idea of today. A high quality dissertation is built upon consistency. Please don't forget that, because the usual mistakes, or the common mistake that we found when we read dissertations as an editor or as a member of a committee, is that it lacks consistency, that something is said in one part and then the same thing is said in a different way or with a different focus on another part, when it was supposed that it should be the same idea. Okay, and I said it again, you can change wording, of course you can, of the pivotal elements, I mean, but you have to be sure that what you do does not change meaning. So you have to be a skillful writer, or at least to have a skillful editor. Okay, and you know that we are in summer now, but work at Doctoral Net continues, and this is what you have for this summer. You have webinars and groups that are, and you also have things like Monday motivations or Friday academic writing emails. And of course, we remind you to download the app. And also, we encourage you to take this survey so we can have your feedback and use that information to improve our work, okay? And to provide you with even better options to learn. And if you want to have a list of previous webinars and the webinars for now, okay, this is good for you, okay? Now I'm here, so I know that some of you came a little later, and if you want me to repeat anything, or if you want me to explain you anything, just let me know, okay? So let me put again, this was the quote which emphasizes the importance that consistency has in a dissertation. And I mentioned that Oscar Wilde considered that consistency was the refuge of the unimaginative people. But I said that is, I think that it is true, but in literature, in the literature field. But in the dissertation field, in which you have to convince people and not entertain them, you need to support your work on consistency. Okay? This was the agenda that we developed today. And as we began talking about consistency and relating consistency, I I think so, Adrian. I don't know why we cannot get to the chat as usual, and that you have to do it by the private section. You know, the big marker usually have some surprises for us that they take it out of a of a hat, I think. So I don't know why that happened, because when you talk about this chat, or they make some changes that we don't know exactly how to work with them. I don't know. The public chat is not working. Okay, so that's what we do with when we linked consistency to coherence, and then we talk about the general idea of what coherence is. So when you think of consistency, think of coherence. And when you think of coherence, think of all parts of something working together because they fit together as a whole. Not like, the picture have one piece that have not been put into its proper place yet, but it should be there in order so the whole thing works together. And then we presented this graph in which we explain the process of going from ideas to consistency. I'm beginning by the logicality of ideas because they are on the same line of thought, and then goes to the appropriate wording because all the ideas must be written in a way that expresses what the ideas exactly are. Okay, and that's important because you may have all your ideas well connected in your mind and so on, but what happens if you don't find the exact words and the exact structure to the exact wording to make them reflect your ideas? But when those two things work together, you have coherence, and if you have coherence, you have consistency. Okay? Any question? Let me stop the recording. And thank you for everybody who registered at this webinar. Thank you so much. And then I want to invite you to register for the next two webinars in July, my next two webinars in July. One is reflective reading, and the other one is reflective writing. Reflective reading is because understanding academic reading implies to be an efficient, active, and reflective reader. Do you know how to do that? If not, register for this webinar and you will know the answer. And regarding reflective writing, I should say that when you write academically, you are expected to create text that reflect not only for understanding of what you have read about the topic discussed, but also your own point of view. To do that, you need to master reflective writing, which is the focus of this webinar. Okay, thank you very much.